Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to this Venus retrograde season special video. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. And so all of us in some ways, in matters of love and also an appreciation of beauty and an understanding of what is joyous and also understanding our own prosperity energy. All of this tends to become more reflective, tends to go a little bit more inward. And one of the deeper questions that we like to ask ourselves during Venus retrograde season is, do I love it? And do I really love it? And that love can be directed towards another person, which does often happen because it is Venus, like I said, goddess of love and passion, but also can be directed in other areas of life as well. How much do you have a love, or how much do you have a life that feels like it is a life you love or not? Where is it that you could bring more love, or where is it that you need to grow up in the realm of love and to take a more mature approach to it? So these are some of the themes that can come up, but one thing is that tells us what it is that this particular Venus retrograde season could mean for us is we look at what major conversations are happening with that Venus. We look at what signs that Venus is going to be moving through the Venus retrograde season. And this gives us some very powerful clues into some of the larger lessons in our lives, larger spiritual lessons as well that may be playing out for us. And I think that this understanding of our lives and the practical lived experience, and also the spiritual connection and the emotional connection to that and how it connects to love is going to be especially pronounced with this 2017 Venus retrograde season. So let me take you a step back. I want to give you a couple of dates that I think are going to be very important with this Venus retrograde season. So the first one and the first series of dates really are happening in the last few days of January 2017. So it was in the last few days of January 17 that Venus and Saturn reached out in connection in a type of conversation that astrologers call a square. But also what happened was that Venus met Chiron in the sky. So Venus meeting Chiron. Chiron mythologically is called the wounded healer. And Chiron as a symbol in the sky, as a symbol in our chart, makes us aware of where it is that a deeper level of healing needs to happen. But more than that, I think about Chiron as having to do with allowing us to actually heal the thing that we didn't think could heal. And in some ways, whenever it is that Chiron is activated, it's like we feel compelled to do the work. It's like we know that that is where some of our most important growing up and most important moving on is going to happen from what otherwise might have hurt so much in the past. And again, we all have this. We all have a part of us that feels very vulnerable. We all have a part of us where stuff happened, or we feel a certain way, or maybe we feel like we're not good enough, or we feel like we've been given certain messages that we need to try even harder. And this ultimately is where Venus is going to meet Chiron, and the opportunity lies to bring love to that very part of us. That very part of us individually in our own lives, and that very part of us considering wherever it is that Chiron is currently moving through in your sky, but also, of course, as a collective as well. Chiron right now is moving through the sign of Pisces for a good long stay. It's only a couple of more years now before Chiron will move on, but tends to spend a few years per sign. It really can vary, okay? Chiron likes to spend a lot more time in certain signs than he does in others. Pisces likes to spend a lot of time in Pisces and Aries, for example. And so we've had a few years already of Chiron moving through Pisces, and the sign of Pisces has to do with, on some level, it has to do with healing. And Chiron being that part of us that is wounded, I think that this has helped us all in some way to understand, again, as a collective, to become more aware of where our wounds are and where it is that maybe more work needs to be done to truly move forward from those wounds. Venus meeting Chiron in the sky can not only make us aware of where it is that there has been hurt, but also truly allow us to bring a spirit and an energy of love and an energy of closure to that hurt, fully empowering us to be in the moment. But here's the thing, Venus is also going to be reaching out to Saturn. And as a matter of fact, Saturn and Chiron are having a dance of their own as well over the course of 2017. And the fact that Venus is reaching out to Saturn, activating this larger conversation, is very intriguing to me, because Saturn has to do with acceptance and surrender. Saturn has to do with understanding the limitations of being a human being and your power in the world. You know, I think about how one of the greatest things of being a human being is recognizing that we have free will, that we can align ourselves in terms of our thoughts, our energy, our actions. They can come together so nicely that we're able to do incredible things, manifest incredible things, live an incredible life, possibly very different than what it might have been in an earlier time of our lives. And yet, for all that, there is always at least one area of life where we have to accept that maybe we don't have as much power. As much as there are times to go after what you want and feel like you are riding with the universe and manifesting amazing things, there can be either other areas of life or other phases of life where it's more about accepting what it is that is showing up for you and doing your absolute best that you can with it, with absolute love, with the best love that you're able to summon for yourself and other people involved. It's an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing learning. And I think Saturn, of all the planets, really does represent something about human imperfection and human frailty, and that very sacred balance of having faith, allowing your actions to reflect that faith is a big part of what Saturn is about. And then you surrender, you let it go, you do your best, and you let go of the rest. Having Venus speak with Saturn in this type of conversation, that astrologers call a square. It's a conversation of motivation. It's a conversation of some tension as well. And this very clearly to me says accepting the limits of love and what love is on offer to you and where that love may be coming from. And a part of this may be having to face some truth for at least some of us out there. Now, if you were born right around the 15th of the month, give or take a few days on either side, you're going to feel this energy more than most, regardless of what month you were born. But all of us are going to be having this sacred lesson. Understanding that where it comes to love, there are times to be very honest with yourselves, and in some cases strikingly honest with ourselves. And there are also times when there may be some delays. Now, delays are not denials, but when there is delays, it is about accepting a divine timetable and knowing that it will come together. When I look at this particular energy, I do think that a part of understanding this sky and understanding what Venus retrograde season is going to mean for us has to do with acceptance, has to do with making the best with what is right now, has to do with accepting reality as well. If you are a person who really likes the fantasy and likes to get very caught up in things, reality can really come on in a way that can be humbling. And reality often is humbling because we all have hopes and dreams and wishes, and especially if there's someone who's particularly intriguing to you in your life, getting caught up in that is one of the most natural human things that we do. And yet this is that dose of reality. Now, for some, reality may take a moment, like a split-second breath of adjustment, and then you are better than fine. Sometimes that reality isn't about another person at all, but it's about you. In fact, Venus has a lot to do with self-esteem and self-value in many areas of life. Of course, in how you love and whom you love and how you allow love into your life is a big part of self-esteem. And so for a lot of people out there, I look at this energy and I think there are going to be some realizations that it's not about the other person at all, but it's about you. It's about your own insecurities, your own whatever it may be that's coming to the surface that is coloring your perceptions and your reactions. And it could very well be some really old stuff like childhood patterns playing out that we become very aware of. And the great thing about awareness is once you become aware, you can't continue along the same path. You can't keep doing what you've been doing. Once you become aware, change has already begun to happen. The process of change is already fully in flight once awareness has occurred. This sky does promise awareness in the context of love. Now, if you are in a situation, which we can sometimes find ourselves in as part of the human experience, if you are in a situation that is considerably less than ideal, that will be very clear as well. If you are in a situation that is absolutely worth working for, it will be a deepening of commitment to that work. One of the great things about life and one of the great things about love is that you do get to learn more deeply. Normally, and depending on how you understand, whether it's this life or beyond, you do get another chance to fully incorporate those lessons. And ultimately, those lessons are about moving you towards greater love and greater wisdom. That connection between love and wisdom can be especially pronounced during Venus retrograde season, where we are encouraged to reflect on what it is that love and the state of love in our life is meant to show us about ourselves, and where is it that we can be more deeply honest? Where is it that we can take greater ownership for the love that we wish to experience? So this element of ownership and of honesty, of reflection as well, and of making the spiritual connection, making that connection between love and wisdom, is that much more magnified with this particular Venus retrograde season. Now, it's not going to be as obvious when Venus is in Aries. As I'm recording this, Venus is in Aries. Venus is standing still in the sky, super powerful, happening in the first days of March. And then we'll go retro, and it will be in the second week of April that Venus will repeat these conversations that she had when she first entered shadow. And that's when a full realization and full culmination will take place. Now, Venus, as I said, also has to do with things like prosperity, how you feel about your ability to attract what it is that you desire into your life, how you feel about prosperity and your deservedness to have that prosperity. That is a very deep spiritual lesson for a whole lot of people out there. And Venus retrograde is a really great time, and especially while Venus is retrograde in the sign of Aries, is a really great time to get to that level of honesty, to that sense of knowing self enough to be able to look at that, and to look at that bravely as well. One of the great spiritual lessons to me actually occurred as a spiritual mentor to me, and it wasn't even that long ago. It was just a few years back. And I remember how she had said that every time you complain about anything having to do with money, every time you complain about not enough, anytime you look at another person with envy or suspicion because of something money related, every time you pay a bill and you feel anxious about it, or you feel like you're losing something, it is literally as if you have a bag in front of you, a bag of money in front of you, and it is literally on a spiritual plane, on an energetic plane, it is as if you are pushing that bag away from you. It's like all the prosperity and all the things of the universe that wants to come into your life, that can find their way to you. It's like you are pushing them away. You are pushing them at bay based on the energy that you are giving to understanding prosperity. It's not about the prosperity. It's not about the money. And one of the really valuable things, I remember, I'll always be so grateful to her, but one of the really valuable things she taught me was, when you pay bills, you have to be in an absolute state of gratitude and happiness. And imagine all the people who are working for that company who now are going to be able to have their bills paid, who are going to be able to take care of their families, who are going to be able to experience more, whatever it is, whatever they need, more ease, more opportunity, more options in their life because you paid that bill. And this to me was very powerful. And I started actually doing this with payments to my student loan. And that really started to change my life. Is when I paid my student loan payments, I would imagine that because I was paying this, I would think about all the different types of students that are out there that will get to have the amazing experiences in formal higher education that I got to have because I had access to this program of student loans in my particular province, sure. But I would especially imagine that this money in particular was going to go to this type of person and that type of person, and I would see them happy and glowing and learning and doing something good for themselves and their families as a result of the knowledge that they gained and the person that they became in the process. And that really was the very beginning of my life changing in some very powerful ways and some very profound ways as well. And I've been really reflecting on this recently thanks to Venus retrograde season. Where is it that you, in your own life as well, need to have that moment of reflection, need to change something about your perception of whatever it may be that ultimately is like you metaphorically pushing that bag of money away from you. Now, also keep in mind, of course, with Venus retrograde, we become reflective. We're able to recognize illusions that much more. So if you are able to understand that prosperity, that money ultimately is not about that thing, right? It is about ultimately options. And there are so many things that give you options, right? Money gives you options, but love gives you options too. It is incredible how love can open up all kinds of doors and windows and opportunities and understandings, how love, it is ultimately love that can release a certain floodgate of blessings into your life. Well, where is it that you've connected to that right that you have to know love, to connect with that energy of love, to connect with that energy of abundance in every area of life? Again, it doesn't have to be about anything that's in the bank account or whatever, but it is about a state of spirit and it is about a state of heart. And when it is a Venus retrograde in Aries, it is so much about that connection to yourself and knowing that there are times, yes, when there's lots of forces out there that are much more powerful than us and we just got to go along for the ride. There are times when the wisdom and love of the universe says that something we really, really want is not for us. But then there are also times that say that you connecting to knowing that you are connected to everything in the universe and all the good things in it are for you. Well, there's something that's very powerful that happens in that state of spirit where you start to recognize all the different ways that prosperity is playing out in your life. Well, I think of Venus retrograde in the sign of Aries as connecting to that very passionate and very essential part of ourselves that knows this truth, that knows that there are options available to us, and that knows that there's something within us that we can value, that we can feel good about, that is a source of great abundance. And however you want to understand that, sometimes it takes being willing to see where it is that you are metaphorically pushing that bag of money away. Or maybe it is that you're pushing love away. Or maybe it is that you're pushing pleasure away. You're not allowing yourself to experience the fullness of being human, being alive, being incarnated, and all the amazing things that are part of that. Where is it that you deny yourself pleasure because of issues of worthiness? Now, it's one thing to say, I have a higher worthiness that I'm going for, so I'm going to deny myself a certain pleasure that's momentary and rather go for that higher pleasure. That's one thing. If you are doing too much of either, that is where the balance starts to go a little bit out of whack. So again, Venus retrograde allows you to reflect on that a little bit more deeply as well. I'm especially encouraged with Venus retrograde going through Aries in passion, like trusting your passion in every area of life. What are you truly excited about? What really makes you happy? Now that could be, of course, professionally. It could play out in terms of the way you live your life and the things that you do day in and day out. But it can also, of course, have to do with love. How are you going to define love? How are you going to be more open to love? Is love going to be something that you are just going to take in a very base and immediate kind of way? Do you feel like you're making compromises? And where is it that you're going to fully own your expression and your experience in love and beauty as well? And of course, like, let me just say it, this is sexy as well, right? Having Venus in Aries is an energy that's very much about owning your divine feminine, and the divine feminine part that knows that you can attract what you need into your life. There are times to go out there and fight and make it happen. A strong Mars can do that, certainly. But with Venus, the power is not going out and fighting for it. The power is in relaxing and allowing it to find you. So whatever that is that you are needing to allow to find you, love, appreciation, prosperity, pleasure, all of these things have that much a way right now of being able to have a deeper sense of honesty within you, so that you do then get any blocks out of the way that allow not only the allowing to happen, but actually allow those things that on some deep level you know you deserve and you know are for you to actually come and arrive into your life. Now, having said all that, right, the allowing and stuff like that, and the connection to prosperity that Venus can have, at the same time, let me say that this is not the time to be making like huge changes to your appearance, dramatically different hairstyles, buying a whole new wardrobe. In fact, it's very possible to kind of overdo it, to think that in some way, if you're allowing yourself to spend a lot, that some way reflects your ease with prosperity. It's easy to convince yourself of that, but it's also very easy to change your mind when Venus goes direct. And so this is what you want to be a little bit mindful of as well. I would say that if something feels like it's an investment, if it feels like you are, actually putting down what feels like a lot of money for you, that's where you want to step back a little bit and be a little bit careful. Venus retrograde is not the best time to be doing any kind of dramatic makeovers, right? Venus is beauty going backwards in the sky. You want a strong forward moving Venus to like the changes and ensure that they're going strong forward and lasting, especially not anything permanent like tattoos or plastic surgery. I would really encourage you to stay away from them. I've seen people try to rationalize and say, well, it's a revision surgery. I would not do it. I would want a strong Venus to do anything like that, or dramatically different hairstyles, or buying a whole new wardrobe, a whole new designer wardrobe at that. These are the things that maybe you want to pace yourself a little bit. And especially when Venus is in Aries, what you think you want in one instant can actually end up being very different just a few weeks down the road. What totally excites you and gets you so excited about, oh my God, I could just have this forever and I could rock it and it'll be amazing. You might actually rock it and be amazing for a few weeks. Now, what is really great with this energy though is that there is a way to really break through the illusion and to understand differently how much it is that is available to you. So things like, sort of finding yourself in a store and being able to put down very little money and getting a whole lot of stuff can happen with this. The small changes, or returning to some small change that you had made to your hair way back in the day, and doing that can have a hugely positive effect on how you feel about yourself and how you present yourself and your appearance now. So there is a fine line, but I would say if it is, if it feels like something not as big a deal, if it feels like something you're just kind of testing out and you're just kind of trying out and, oh yeah, why not? Okay, it's not a big investment or a big deal. That is where you've got lots of energy to have things go exceptionally well. But again, nothing permanent. This is Goddess of Love, so also ideally astrologers like to say that you do want a strong Venus, a strong forward-moving Venus for things like agreements that you hope will allow love to grow, like getting married. So if you can help it, not everybody can help it, but if you can help it, maybe not the best time to get married during a Venus retrograde. Essentially, when you do get married, what happens is that moment of I do, like that minute and that second you say I do, has a chart that represents that marriage and all the promises that that marriage can bring. And, weird things can happen with Venus retrograde in a marriage chart. I'll give you one example. I have a friend and she had Venus retrograde at her what she thought was her wedding at the time. It was kind of a shotgun wedding. She's told me she was pregnant and it was like, okay, we got to do this because it was way back in the day. And it was like some 25 years later when Venus was retro, right at the exact same spot, same degree, and some other things were happening that were very similar to when they just got married, that they found out that he Her husband was not actually ever legally divorced from his first wife. And so it was this very funny thing, and they had this beautiful wedding with their adult son there. And so they laughed it off. They thought it was a really funny way that this particular energy can speak. But also the really great thing is that she was then a better astrologer as well. So she chose a rock solid, really great wedding date. And it did speak to a change in how they were with each other. There was a much deeper commitment. They had a different understanding of love, having been together for so long and also being older at that point. They had a different understanding of love. And so they were able to choose a wedding date more consciously, because she wasn't really into astrology before that, but more consciously, she was able to choose a date that affirmed things like loyalty and fidelity and a deepening commitment and a longevity of the bond. So that was a really beautiful example to me. The other thing that they say with Venus retrograde is if you meet somebody, chances are it won't be what you think it is on the surface. Okay, now it could end up being a whole lot better. However, I do want to say, as I talked about early in this video, we have Venus really stationing. First she entered shadow, and then she will station direct in April while connected with Chiron and speaking with Saturn. So sometimes Venus goes direct and it is better than what you thought it was before. But with this, it does look like there might be a little bit of, deeper questioning, a little bit of, having to really look at your own fears, and that part of it of really accepting reality can seem especially pronounced with this. Now, again, a lot depends on what's happening in your own individual chart. It could end up being a whole lot better, right? Again, given your individual chart. But just be open and be aware to the fact that, there may be some vulnerabilities that become inspired or you become made aware of with this Venus retrograde season, if it is someone new that you've met. And, as I said, sometimes it's you, it's not the other person. It's not the other person that ends up being so different, but it's you and who you know yourself to be and what you want, and, realizing, oh, wow, I'm really this way in relationships. And I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that person. I want to be different in love. More, whatever your ideal is, right? More easing, more trusting, more forgiving, and seeing parts of yourself, as I like to say, and this actually comes from a philosopher whose name I don't remember, way back in the day as an undergrad when I took a philosophy of love class. I remember reading a philosopher who talked about how love involves seeing yourself differently as reflected in the eyes of another. It's a mirror. Essentially, that person acts as a mirror, and they are showing you all those things about yourself. They come so on the surface, things about yourself that are vulnerable, that are hurt, that are afraid of being intimate and exposed. And there's something about love that reaches into this very child part of ourselves and all the childhood wounds that may be there. There's something about love that has us repeating these patterns that we saw the earliest people who were in love play out in front of us, even when we don't want that, even when we curse that, even when we say that we swore to ourselves we'd never had the kind of relationship with someone like a particular parent. We may find ourselves as an adult dating people who are so much like that particular parent that we swore we were not going to have the same relationship with, and behaving in ways that are so reminiscent of what we saw in early life. It is the most natural thing. It is the thing that is part of growing up, is seeing and understanding the past differently. Well, it is Venus retrograde that gives you the chance to do just that, and to become aware that that is what is happening. And as you become aware that that is what's happening, as I said, awareness is the big catalyst. Like, change has already taken flight. You can't be the same once awareness has set in. And so once that awareness takes flight, change has already begun to happen, and it is only the beginning. And it is really what is necessary in order to experience greater love. Love towards self, love for the human experience, and love on a heart-based level for another person, one-on-one, can also be part of how this energy can present itself to us now, because ultimately this is all a part of the sacred lessons of Venus. the sacred lessons of love. Well, thank you so much for watching. Let me give you a very quick overview just so you know. If you are an Aries, Venus retrograde is going to speak very much to a level of identity and conditioning and really understanding the unconscious patterns that are playing out for you. If you are a Taurus, a lot of this energy is going to be playing out in terms of the unconscious patterns and in the realm of friendships as well. These lessons in love and worthiness are going to play out in those realms in particular. If you are a Gemini, it is going to be friendships and career. These are the two areas that are going to be very highlighted now, where you come to understand something about what it ultimately is that you believe is your life purpose and how the people around you support that or don't, and where love fits into that. If you are a Cancer, this Venus retrograde season is going to speak to elements of career and worthiness to achieve great things, as well as understanding your place in the world, the philosophies that guide your life and how they affirm love and wisdom, or where it is that they have become an excuse to protect you from the type of love that on some level you truly are ready for. If you are a Leo, this energy is going to speak to a changing understanding of what it is ultimately that you want to put into place to manifest bigger and better things, and what needs to really change within you. Like, what secrets are you keeping that you know you're keeping that ultimately are keeping you from intimacy, and where is it now that you're ready to open up more deeply and allow yourself to be more vulnerable? For the Virgos out there, this energy is going to speak very powerfully in terms of understanding the sharing of resources. How much do you feel like you really can share with another person? Your money, your time, your presence. How deep are you going to allow that to go? And where is it ultimately that that is really going to speak to partnerships and friendships and who you are attracting into your life? In fact, of all the signs out there who are likely to experience this Venus retrograde season, most in the realm of love and changing relationships, it is going to be the Virgos, the Libras, the Scorpios, and the Sages as well. It is going to be these signs in particular that are going to find this a time where any romantic decisions that are made are not likely to last. And so if you break up with somebody, you're probably not going to stay broken up with them. If you end up meeting somebody, the chance of them really being different, really being something very different, are that much more pronounced. And yet, as I said, depending on what's happening in your unique birth chart, it could end up being a whole lot better at that. The Capricorns are the ones most likely to run into past loves, like from way back in the day. It's the Sages that are most likely, and even the Scorpios for that matter, but really the Sages out there who are most likely to run into past lovers, like somebody that they met once or twice and that was it, and they show up again in the most uncanny place. And for the Capricorns, it really is like the way back then, the first love, the person they knew from their old neighborhood that they could be running into. For the Aquarians out there, this is going to most play out in the realm of your neighborhood. So be very careful about flirting with your neighbors, because that ending up being different could end up being awkward. And the Pisceans out there, I mean, of all the signs who are going to experience this in the realm of understanding healing very deeply and understanding worthiness very deeply, it certainly is you. The Aries, the Pisceans out there are the ones that I'm going to caution most not to get a tattoo, okay? And because your taste really could change once that Venus goes direct. I talk about this and a whole lot more for each sign on astrofabulous.com. If you come on to astrofabulous.com and become one of my superstars each and every single week during this Venus retrograde season, I'm talking about how it is that you can understand and how to use Venus to your advantage and what some of the sacred learning is for you. So we're going through it week by week with the superstar community there at astrofabulous.com. And I'm truly so grateful to have that community, to have that trust, and to have so many people joining every single day, this brand new Astrofabulous superstar. So log on, astrofabulous.com or nadiyashah.com. But of course, I will be here on YouTube and continue to be here on YouTube. I talked about this Venus retrograde season in the most recent monthly horoscopes published right now on YouTube for March. So check out the March horoscopes for your sign to learn more about how Venus retrograde season is speaking to you. And if you want an even more thorough, exclusive horoscopes that really dive in every single week and are filled with an infusion and a reminder of love and wisdom, then log on to astrofabulous.com or nadiyashah.com. Thank you so much. Truly so grateful for this moment with you. It'll be a great Venus retrograde season. Enjoy.